Have you wanted to try cutting cardstock with your ScanNCut machine, but you weren't quite sure how to get started? If so, you're in the right place. Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this super cute little heart from cardstock using a ScanNCut machine. It's got 3 different colours in it and 4 pieces in total, so it's great for a little simple beginner project to get you used to cutting cardstock with your machine. In this video, I'll show you how to unzip download folders, how to get your SVG files into the CanvasWorkspace software, how to do all the formatting and changing you might need, including changing the colours and resizing the design, and then how to send it to your cutting machine as an FCM file and get all the pieces cut out. We'll look at 2 different ways for cutting it out. The first way is to do each colour separately, so you'd load the mat once each time for each different colour. And the second way is to use the amazing Scan Mat feature on the ScanNCut to get all the pieces cut out at the same time and only have to load the mat once. If you're using a different brand of cutting machine, so if you've got a Cricut or a Silhouette, then head to craftwithsarah.com/help. Choose your type of machine from the list on the screen, and then there'll be a separate version of this video that teaches exactly the same project, but for your particular cutting machine. But if you've got a ScanNCut, you're in the right place, so let's get started. The first part of this video is the same no matter what type of cutting machine you're using. Once you've chosen the file that you want to make and you've downloaded it, whether it's from craftwithsarah.com or another source, you'll probably find that it comes as a zip folder. You'll need to unzip this or uncompress it before you can upload the cut file into your cutting machine's software. The instructions for doing that are a little bit different if you're on a Windows computer, a Mac, or a mobile device. On a Mac, you can usually just double-click on the zip folder to unzip it. I'll show you how to do it on a Windows computer, which is what I'm using shortly. If you're using a mobile device, whether it's Android or iOS, head to craftwithsarah.com/help, and on that page is a link to a more detailed video and tutorial on how to unzip folders on all those different types of devices. If you're on a Windows computer, find your zip folder. It will probably be in your Downloads folder. Right-click on it and press Extract All. Choose where you want to save it on your computer and then press Extract. You can see that's made a copy of the folder, only this time it doesn't have the zip on the picture, it's showing an open folder and it doesn't end .zip in the file name. So this is the one I want to use when I'm getting the file into my cutting machine software. After downloading and unzipping the folder, it's time to get the SVG file into CanvasWorkspace. Open up CanvasWorkspace and then press File, Import from your computer. Find the unzipped version of the folder. If you're using one of my newer designs, you'll notice this folder structure. So it starts at 0 and goes all the way down to number 6. For ScanNCut machines, I recommend using the version either 03 layers separated in order or 04 layers separated by colour. My personal preference is 04 layers separated by colour. If you're using one of my older designs and you don't see all of these folder options, then you'll need to use the file that starts SVG in the file name. That will be a little bit trickier to use because it will put all of the pieces one on top of the other, so you'll manually need to move them apart before you can get them to cut. I have a separate video on how to do that. To find it, go to craftwithsarah.com/help, choose ScanNCut from the list of machine options, and then look for the video on how to upload SVGs to CanvasWorkspace. But if you're using one of my newer designs or one of my free files, all of which have been redone into this format as of February 2025, the ones to choose are the either 03 layers separated in order or 04 layers separated by colour. I'll open the 04 folder, and within there are several different file type options. Choose the one that starts SVG in the file name. Now for some reason, I'm not quite sure why, but all of my SVG files load into CanvasWorkspace all in black, so we're going to need to add the colours back. For this design, because it's only 4 pieces and only 3 colours, this is going to be very easy to do, and we can just do it by eye without actually needing to check the colours against the original. If you're using a design that is more complicated, head to that same tutorial I mentioned a moment ago at craftwithsarah.com/help, choose ScanNCut, and then watch the video on how to upload SVGs to CanvasWorkspace. I go through a nifty little way of adding all of the colours to make sure they're exactly right in that video. But for this one, I'm just going to do it by eye. So my outer little fluffy frilly bit is going to be white. These 2 hearts are red. I'm clicking into the colour box here and choosing a colour, and then this one down here will be a pink. It's now hard to see the white heart on the background, so let's drag a box around everything, go into the stroke option, the line colour here, and choose black and press OK, and that's outlined everything so it's a little bit easier to see, but don't worry, that doesn't affect how it's going to cut. If you wanted to resize the heart, the easiest way to do that is to drag all the pieces in order so that they're all on top of that outer fluffy frilly heart. I need to think of a better way to describe it. Then I can drag a box around everything and then go to the edit option over here on the right. The width at the moment is 4 inches, but I can change this, making sure that the maintain aspect ratio button is ticked. For example, I could go 6 inches, press enter or return on my keyboard, and everything else changes in proportion. The reason we moved everything on top of that biggest layer first is so that when we selected everything, we got the actual size of the outline of that biggest shape. If you'd have tried selecting it when everything was still separate, you see it gives you the size of everything combined, which wouldn't have helped us very much. However, I am going to cut mine at the original, which is 4 inches, so let's just undo all of that. There are a couple of different ways that you can send your design to your ScanNCut machine. You can either send it one colour at a time, or you can do all the colours at once. Because this is a fairly simple design, I'm going to do all colours at once and get them all cut out at the same time. It's easiest if you separate everything out onto your mat like I've done here. So I've put my grouped colours together and then I've got them in separate corners. Save your project by going File, Save As, and then give it a name. You don't have to save it if you don't want to, but it means you don't have to go through all that effort of changing the colours again. You'll have it all ready to load next time. You'll just be able to load this save file instead of the original SVG. To send it to your machine, make sure your machine is plugged in and switched on and then connected to your computer, or if you're going to be using a USB, then make sure you've got that handy. I've plugged mine in via a USB cable, which is how I'm going to connect. Press File and then Export/Transfer FCM file. You can then choose if you just want to export the file, for example, to save on a USB stick. If you're going to manually transfer it to your machine on a USB, you can transfer it via the internet, or you can do what I'm doing, which is to transfer via USB cable. So choose whichever one of those is most suited for you. I will press that one. Alright, so I'm seeing a failed to transfer the file box. It's telling me to return to the home screen on my machine and try again. I think that's because I was already doing a project before I started this one and I haven't actually closed it yet. But it's good to see error messages in videos because it means if you see the same error, you'll know what to do. The reason I was seeing that error message is because, as you can see from the screen on the ScanNCut, which I've zoomed into for this video, I already had the project open from where I was testing it before I recorded this video. So what I'm going to do is press the home button and then press OK to go back and start again. Now I can go back over to my computer. So now I should be okay to press OK on that error and then transfer it again. It's working that time. It's telling me I need to switch over to the machine. I'll press OK on there. So now on my screen I can press Retrieve Data. I chose the USB cable option, which is this one. So I need to press that one and it's going to find the project. Here it is. You can see my hearts are all here, although they all are showing now without colour, but that's okay. We can always look back at the computer screen to see which one's which. I'm going to cut these all at once, putting little bits of my cardstock on each of the corners because I want to show you how you can scan your mat to make sure everything's going to be cut in the right place. That is amazing with these ScanNCut machines. After using a Cricut for so long, I would love it to have something like that. And it made me very, very happy playing about with my new ScanNCut machine. Alright, but first I'll show you how you do it if you just wanted to cut one at a time. So I could add my material to the cutting mat along those edges, making sure your arrow is at the top, and then push that down really securely. If you've got a brayer tool or similar, then you can go down. I know you can't really see, I'm running out of space, but that helps get it stuck a little bit better. So I would want to cut all my red shapes out and not the others. Alright, so from looking at my computer screen, I know that these two hearts here are the ones in red. So for the other two, I can tap on them and then press Edit and Delete and OK. And then do the same for the pink heart in there, or just press Delete there. And we're good. And then because I've put my red card over here, let's move those over. Clicking and dragging on the touch screen. For these, I'm not actually going to cut them out because I want to show you how to do it with all of it in different places. But what you would do next is you would load your mat. So move this over so you can see. Push the mat in and hold it against the two little black rollers, and then press this middle button. And that would load the mat in. Actually, you know what? I will go through the whole process. Alright, so now I would press OK and then OK. Under Please Select, choose Cut. I've done some testing and it's always worked out really well at the auto settings. I haven't changed it so far. I've made a few projects and everything's always cut fine. So I'm going to stick with that and press Start. If you wanted to, you could do a test cut just to make sure. I'm being rebellious. That's cut those out. I want to check it has cut through by peeling off a bit of the card, and it has, so that's great. If it hadn't, you could have followed it through and done the cut process again. But that has worked. This machine is big, it's hard to show on camera. I'm going to eject the mat, and then this would be my first colour done. There you go. So what I would do then is take that off, put my next colour on, and then do it on the touch screen to get the next colour ready. I'll press OK and then go back, and then I'm going to press the home screen and then press OK on Delete All Patterns, go back to Retrieve Data and bring in the project again. And then this time I can delete those two red ones, we've already cut them, and the pink one. And then I would just have this white one ready to cut. I won't follow that through again because it will be exactly the same as you just saw. What I do want to show you is the scanning ability. So let's go back to the home. Okay, retrieve data, load it again. I'm going to cut everything now on the same mat at the same time. First, I'm going to take a little look at my papers and get them stuck on my mat. I've added 3 bits of cardstock onto my mat all at the same time. There's white here, red and pink. If you're doing this, make sure none of the bits of card overlap with each other, otherwise where it overlaps that bit's not going to be stuck to anything because it won't have the stickiness of the base piece, so it might jam up your machine. But I've got all these in 3 distinctly different places. So let's load the mat. Hold it up against those black rollers and push this middle button. I'm trying to keep this so you can still see the mat a little bit and you can see the screen. Push the middle button here, which is the scan button. It will tell you to load the mat. I've already done that, so I can just press start. And that's going to feed the mat through and use the little camera to scan everything I've put on there. Now that it's scanned it, there's a picture of it here. And I think I will need to zoom in a little more so you can see. There we go. Hopefully you can see that okay. Alright, so I've got my pictures of my hearts and I can now use the stylus to drag and drop them to make sure they're appearing on my cardstock. At the moment, this top heart, the big one, isn't. It's overlapping a bit so it wouldn't cut out right. So if I move the little one out the way first, then I can drag the big one so that it's covered up by all the card and then move the little one above it. If you're struggling to do it with the stylus, you can press edit and use the arrows to move it a little bit instead. So if you just want to move it a little way, that can be helpful. Now I know that all of these are going to cut perfectly from the card. So we can go okay and okay. Under please select, choose cut. Once again, I'm going to keep all those settings the same and then press start. First, let's zoom out a little bit again so you can see it cutting. So I'll press start now. Again, it's all on the auto settings. I haven't changed anything. And here it goes. And now I'll push OK. Now one thing I've noticed is my heart over here is right up against the edge. It is still on the mat, but I hadn't realised I'd done it so close. Oh, I have. I think it's because I had the screen right down low so that you can see it on camera. That means I can't actually see it very well. So I should have had that moved over to the left a little bit. But it's okay, it's just about been fine. I now know for the future to check it more carefully. I think it also doesn't help that it's white on white, so it's very hard to see. But it's been okay. Alright, let's eject the mat. And then here's everything. Not sure if you can see, but that is where it's just lined up okay. The others are much better. Now I'm finished with the project. We can just go home. I'm not gonna delete anything, and then that'll be ready for me to make something else or to turn it off and craft again another day. But before we go, let's see how to take the cardstock off the mat in the best way and then how to stick everything together. Here's my cutting mat with all of those heart shapes done. Now instead of peeling the card off the mat like this, although this one's worked out because it's small, sometimes doing it like that can cause the card to kind of bend or roll as it takes the pressure as you're peeling it off. To stop it doing that, instead of peeling the card off the mat, we're going to peel the mat away from the card. So turn it upside down and then use your hands to gently hold the bits of cardstock flat as you take the mat away. Try not to fold the mat, otherwise you might crease it or break it. It's just a gentle bend away. And that's taken those pieces of card off, keeping them lovely and flat. And here's everything cut out. You see that auto setting did absolutely perfect. All these hearts look gorgeous, and now they're ready to be stuck together. I like to use a combination of glue and foam squares so that I can give my paper crafts some dimension. With all of my paper crafts, if you look in the download folder that you originally got from my website, there is a file in there called Assembly Guide. Open that up and that will show you the order that all of the layers go in and whether I recommend sticking each one with glue or foam squares. If you don't have any foam squares, you can just use glue and it will still end up a beautiful paper craft project. What I like to do before I start sticking is to put everything in order following that assembly guide. You can print out the assembly guide if you want so that you've got it with you while you're crafting. So this one's pretty simple, it's only 4 pieces, so I can manage that one from memory. And there it is, so that's how it'll look when it's all put together. The reason I like putting all the layers on top of each other first is that I can check I've not accidentally lost anything along the way, and also that I'm just happy with how all the colours look when they're on top of one another. Because sometimes colours look great when they're next to each other, but when you actually start stacking them, you might notice that maybe there's not as much contrast or difference as you wanted, or maybe some of the tones don't go together very well. But that is all looking lovely. Any type of glue that you would usually use with your papercraft projects is fine. My current favourite glue is Barely Art glue, and I like this because it has a very thin nozzle on it, so the glue comes out really, really slowly, and it comes with a needle to put in so it doesn't dry out. This is a white glue, so it doesn't have a smell to it, it's nice and quick to dry, and it doesn't bend or wrinkle the cardstock like some wet glues can do. For similar reasons, I also like Kalal. This also doesn't bend or wrinkle the cardstock, but for this one, it comes with quite a big nozzle, so you'd probably want to buy some needle tip applicator bottles, which are tiny little bottles with little nozzles on to put the glue into, to make sure you can get it into all the little areas of your project without kind of spilling it or putting too much on. Kalal is a solvent glue, so it does have a little bit of a smell to it, so bear that in mind, especially if you are sensitive to solvent products. Another glue I also quite like, but I don't use as much, is this Nuvo glue from Tonic Studios. These have a nice thin nozzle to them too, and it doesn't bend or wrinkle the card as long as you only use a little bit of it. If you use loads, it can have that wrinkling effect, which is why this one is third in my favourites. And also sometimes I found that they get a little bit clogged and hard to use, but generally this is still a great glue. I live in the UK and I get all of these glues online. Barely Art glue and Kalal I buy on Amazon, and the Nuvo glue I buy direct from Tonic Studios. If you don't have any of those glues, that's absolutely fine, just use what you've got. The foam squares I like to use are from Dot & Dab. Again, I get these on Amazon. They come in different sizes, and these ones you can see are quite small. It tells you the size here. These are 5 by 5 millimeters, and these ones are double, so they're 10. So you can choose which one you use based on the size of the card that you're making. If you've only got larger foam squares, you can cut them smaller with scissors. These ones are both white, but you can also buy black foam squares, which can help if you're doing a darker papercraft project with lots of dark coloured layers, so that you can't see the edges of the foam when you turn the papercraft around. But generally, I don't really find that's a problem, even if I use the light ones on a black papercraft. You don't normally see them poking through unless you're looking really, really, really hard at it, which I don't think you would be that likely to do. With all of my papercraft projects, you'll start at the bottom and then work your way upwards. I'm going to move these pieces apart again and then start with this one. So if you look at the assembly guide, you'll see for this one, this is a glue layer. So I turn it around, so this is upside down, and add my glue. You want a good amount on here to make sure it'll be well stuck. And then put it in the middle of the frilly bit. And it's a bit hard to see because it's white card on a white table. Just wiggling that around to get it in the middle. There we go. If I put my hands under, you can see a little easier. And then for this design, that's the only glue one. So I'll add the needle tip back in my glue, put that to one side, and then get some foam squares for the rest. Next up is the pink heart, which will be done with the foam squares. So I turn it upside down and add some foam. Now this is quite a small piece of card, so I can get away with just 3 pieces. If your piece is bigger, you'll need more. If you have got a large piece, for example, something about this size, then you would want to add some foam squares in the middle as well as around the edge to make sure that you've got good stability across the whole shape for when you stick it on. If you don't add anything in the middle, you might find your card kind of bends downwards, domes downwards like that, where it's got nothing to support it. So adding a few extra foam squares in the middle really does make a difference on those larger bits of card. But this one's tiny, so 3 is just fine. Peel the tops off, and then you'll find that these are sticky underneath. You might want to keep a little pot or dish handy to get all of those little squares in, otherwise they tend to go everywhere. And then line that up just roughly in the middle, as close as you can get it, and push down to stick. And I got one little heart left. This is even smaller. I'll go for 2 bits of foam this time. And again, put that in the middle. And that's my heart done. So now you have your very first cardstock project cut with your ScanNCut machine. Isn't it cute? It's now all ready to go on a greetings card, or you could frame it, put it in a scrapbook page. You could add a magnet on the back and put it on the fridge, or you could even punch a hole in the top and use it as a gift tag. The possibilities really are endless. And now you know how to cut one project, you'll be able to make all kinds of cardstock crafts with your ScanNCut. If you'd like to progress to the more complex layered designs, as shown on my website at craftwithsarah.com, but you're not quite sure how to go from something like this to something like this with many more layers on it and a lot more colours, then I have a follow-on video for you. Head to craftwithsarah.com/help, choose ScanNCut from the list of machine options, and then look for the video on how to make layered cardstock designs with a ScanNCut. It follows a lot of the same steps from this video, but we just go into a little bit more detail about separating out all the colours and sending different colours to your machine. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make your very first cardstock craft with your ScanNCut. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for lots more ScanNCut tutorials and free SVGs. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!